Okay, so welcome back. This is part 2 of YouTube. My take on it, my story. So my name's Herb Gilliland. I went to Carnegie Mellon University. I'm a scientist. I did research in cancer detection and postdoctoral research in bioinformatics. After suing, or around the time I was suing Chad Hurley, I'm just kind of revealing the connections that are in my mind that deal with this. So this is a picture of Peter Thiel, and he's a German who came to Silicon Valley and basically made a lot of money founding PayPal, but he was before that a corporate lawyer. So that's how he got his investment capital. Probably some inheritance, who knows. But one of his famous quotes, and an early quote that has been repeated in the media, is that Peter Thiel says that since 1920, he's a libertarian, so he's very negative about government intervention in marketplaces, and I'm sure in Peter Thiel's utopia he has absolute control over everything, and the government doesn't interfere, but the government has to interfere, and the reason why is because people like Peter Thiel would take advantage of everybody. Anyway, his famous quote is that the biggest mistake that we've ever made is to give women the right to vote. And he basically says that immigrants and women ruin the chance for American libertarianism to flourish, which is an extraordinarily radical view. And I don't know if it's even libertarian. It's sort of fascism under the guise of libertarianism. You know, when I think of libertarians, I think of people who want to legalize marijuana and decrease government intervention in our personal lives, but you need government intervention in the form of police activity that stops crimes from happening, and regulation of business so that people don't take advantage of one another. Frankly, I think that capitalism itself is flawed in that it provides only certain people with, the ability to get their basic needs fulfilled. And one of the needs that we have, among others, is a need for belonging, which capitalism in many forms thwarts. Because it's about exclusion and isolation. A lot of things that capitalism has produced is about capitalization. Is about isolation. I'm just sort of ad-libbing this in a conversational way because I'm, not interested in having something scripted. This is really what I think. Other quotes that Peter Thiel have made publicly includes that, for one, he wants to build cities on the sea to avoid governments so that he can live in international waters, and he's actually fulfilling this dream by creating this super yacht that is called Blue Seed, and it's basically a corporation on the water. It should be completed in 2013. It's a megalomaniac's dream where he gets to bring people who do not qualify for visas close to Silicon Valley, and then people from Silicon Valley can approach in their little boat and offload and go talk to these people and then go back to Silicon Valley. And these people are like people from Hong Kong, or just people who just can't get visas. So the problem with libertarianism and a lot of these older ideas that have been around for a while, when I mean a while, I mean several hundred years, is that they have ties to, occultism and old, the cult of the Gnostic Church and the Golden Dawn and Masonic churches and Masonic temples, rather, and, things like that. Anyway, so it's fun to look around at some of Peter's friends, like Patry Friedman, who believes in this seasteading, which is the, living on the sea. It's funny because they want to build plastic cities on the plastic ocean, and they're the ones, the capitalists are the ones that made the ocean into a plastic soup that causes mutations in fish and other wildlife. So it's fitting. They don't really take responsibility for their actions. Peter Thiel, after funding and building Facebook, immediately sold to get his huge amount of money out of it, because he wasn't, I guess, convinced that it would ever make him money in the future. And they said it was unusual. Other people said it was expected because he announced it in the beginning, and he said that he didn't want people to think that Facebook would suffer, the stock value would suffer because of his activity. Anyway, Peter Thiel also said, and I'm going to try to find this on YouTube, Peter Thiel, fascism. Basically, he's saying that the future of the world for the next few hundred years will be fascism. That's the role that capital will take. Of course, it's always been fascist, the idea of property exclusion. I own this, you can't have it. I have control, you do not. This is the give and take of capitalist societies. If you like this sort of critical attack on capital, I highly recommend Guy Debord's Society of the Spectacle. You can probably watch the film on YouTube. And the book really influenced my thinking behind a lot of the stuff. Also, it's the stuff that you see every day with the YouTube stuff. And, it's influenced people for decades. Also, Jean Baudrillard and other... so the Guy Debord, he started this Situationists, and they're like this radical 1960s French anti-capitalist, non-communist, but similar socialist anarchists who, question all property and attack bitingly capital with its own terminology. And it's very interesting. The book's hard to read. You have to read it and read it over again because it's deprogramming you. So cool stuff. Guy Debord, and Jean Baudrillard was less of a situationist, but more of a like a critical thinker. He was a little bit too religious for my taste, but some of his work was interesting. The System of Objects is one. He coined the term hyper-real, and all words that added hyper onto them were Baudrillard influenced. He also did this critique on The Louds, which was the first reality TV show in 1970.
I kind of figured you'd say that. Now, from what social status equal to the whites?
So you can look at The Louds as like the first reality TV show. Dick Cavett interviewed them. There's a bunch of stuff on here about them. It was the first time that we turned the cameras on ourselves. They were no longer on the cinema, which was largely a contrived experience. I mean, certainly there was documentary, but for the first time, people, the Loud family of Santa Barbara, California, they filmed their entire lives in an epic TV documentary. So it's self-study, basically. People studying themselves in a weird voyeuristic world known as the Panopticon, envisioned by Michel Foucault. There's Michel. I don't think it's Michel. Foucault's pendulum, you know, everybody knows that. Foucault famously debated with Chomsky. All these things are worth looking at. Chomsky, of course, if you're not familiar, great critiques of media. I was aware of all this when developing the basic ideas behind YouTube, and the logo and such was probably more of a youthful zeal or whatever, creative zeal for making logos. And anyway, other stuff I wanted to kind of throw in here. First of all, I'd like to mention that in the previous part I talked about Michael Arrington's article. It appeared in the Washington Post as well as on the website, so there was a lot of coverage in the beginning when I made this claim. Probably like 100,000 people at least read it, probably more than that if you think of the readership base of the Washington Post, but it's not the most read magazine. It's not the New York Times. They certainly didn't cover it. So Michael Arrington, Davos 2007, this is where he reveals that he's friends with Chad. So if you look at this,
It's going to be a really fun panel. We have some fascinating people on stage, and what I'd like to do is have a wide-ranging conversation for 30 to 40 minutes about a number of topics, but loosely organized around the future of mobile. And then we're going to take audience questions for at least 20 minutes at the end, and maybe even a little longer. So if you have things that you'd like to ask the panelists, think about it now. I also noticed we have execs from, well, in the room or on stage, we have execs from Microsoft, Facebook, Google, some other companies. So maybe we can bring them into the conversation at some point as well. Maybe. Last night I saw Sheryl Sandberg, who's here, who's your president. Chad Hurley, to my right, is the co-founder and CEO of YouTube, which is now a subsidiary of Google. That acquisition was at the end of 2006. That's right. My name is Mike Arrington. I write a blog called TechCrunch. I'm actually the least interesting person on stage.
Law firm answer.
Ergo fragmentation, right?
Chad, I remember you came to a party at my house a couple months after you launched YouTube, and I remember asking you, I'm so envious. I remember asking you, so this YouTube thing, like video, people are putting like videos of like fire trucks and stuff up, and a lot of copyrighted content at the time. I said, what do you think it's going to work out? And I remember you saying, I don't know, we'll see where it goes. So I guess first of all, how did that work out?
Well, we're still working on it. We still feel there's a long way to go because, what you said, a billion people online now?
Yeah.
so I didn't know this at the time. It wasn't uploaded in, well, it says here it was uploaded in 2009, but that's, oh, I thought this was 2007. So this happened like during the case, actually. This was 1 month into the case. So anyway, there's that. Didn't know that before that. Actually, I may have started the case at the end of this year. So this was January. So it may have been that the case started, the actual, like, my lawyer and I engaged. I was doing things, but I needed to get a lawyer at that point. It took a very long time to find a lawyer. Who's going to do it for free? Who's interested in taking on Google? Who doesn't have a conflict of interest? Who believes me? There were lots of factors that played into that. And I was very lucky to find Attorney Montz, but unfortunately we were not lucky enough to escape the crush of Rule 11. I wonder if there's anything on YouTube about Rule 11. Let's just see. Well, there's a Nas song called 11 Rule. Let's see. Federal Rule 11. There were changes to the Rule 11. Anyway, George Bush made it stronger, and The Firm is about Rule 11, and the underlying pretext, or subtext rather, in The Firm is that people do not have rights versus corporations. So how can you then double speak your way around and say that corporations are like people. They are not. Corporations are collections of people. They function differently. They behave differently. And frankly, they are immune to a lot of the same punishments, so they can't be treated the same. But any laissez-faire economist or libertarian or just anybody who's like that will tell you that they should be treated that way. Probably, in some cases, not even knowing what the ramifications of that means. In most cases, they're just business people who want to be left alone. Anyway, it's yeah, if you go and you look for Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11, this is the classic defense. Used by Google's lawyer almost every time an individual sues Google. So something to look into, kind of a dry topic. This is the very rule or law that, takes away individual rights, and that's why class actions appeared, and then they took away class actions. There's also this thing called anti-SLAPP in California, and anti-SLAPP basically it just gets rid of cases that are coming at you in California only. Probably this video by Adrianos Fischetti covers it quite well. I don't really know. I haven't seen this yet.
Hi, this is Adrianos Fischetti again from the California Defamation Law blog with another informative video. Once a defendant makes its threshold showing that a complaint arises under protected activity under the anti-SLAPP statute, the plaintiff must demonstrate a probability of prevailing on the merits. This means a plaintiff must state and substantiate a legally sufficient claim. Stated another way, plaintiff must demonstrate the complaint is both legally sufficient and supported by a sufficient prima facie showing of facts to sustain a favorable judgment. If the evidence submitted by the plaintiff is credited, if the pleadings are not adequate to support a cause of action, the plaintiff has failed to carry his burden in resisting the motion. According to California case law, special motions to strike pursuant to Section 425.16 operate like a demurrer or motion for summary judgment in reverse. Just like a demurrer, if a plaintiff fails to state a cause of action, it will be stricken. Therefore, it is critically important for a plaintiff to carefully draft its complaint. Plaintiff must plead sufficient facts in its complaint in order to state each cause of action. It may not be enough for plaintiff to state certain facts for the first time in its opposition to an anti-SLAPP motion. This is Adrianos Fischetti from the California Defamation Law blog. Thanks for watching.
So, what he's saying in less legal terms is basically that in order to have a lawsuit, you have to be able to win from day one without discovery. Because anti-SLAPP stops discovery from happening. And what anti-SLAPP, legal, outside of being a lawyer, like lawyers defend the legal process to some extent. They're also critics of it, but they don't understand what they're doing to some extent. I think that they're challenged by being within the system. Or whatever. It's called anti-SLAPP. I slap you with a lawsuit, you slap me back. You use anti-SLAPP. It's like a spray, It's just... Anyway, my lawyers, in addition to Britton Montz, there was Heather Bridgers. Let me look that up real quick. Attorney Montz, wait. Britton Montz, here we go. He's a super lawyer. Let's see where he is. Montz firm. Haven't talked to him since the case. Lawyers don't have a lot of time to hang out with people. But, yeah. So this was my attorney, Britton Montz. He has a lot of, a lot of accolades, and he works with Heather Bridgers, who was just a great person. These pictures are a little old, but they're fairly accurate. And Britt was a great guy, and I guess the thing that he revealed to me after he took the case was that his father had invented something fundamental. He wouldn't tell me what it was, but this apparently creates a conflict of interest, which, whatever. Anyway, she specializes in anti-slap in California, so, I thought I had some pretty good people who were going to be able to defend me, and I think that they were. It's just that you have these laws that make they're so abstract. It's just like the banking system. They're just, you can't, we needed to discover evidence, and therefore if you have to discover evidence but aren't allowed to enter discovery, how can you discover the evidence? It's a catch-22 created by the law for the specific reason of protecting companies and screwing individuals, and that's what Chad capitalized on. That's why I didn't get my money. I mean, I didn't ask for all the money. I asked for a small piece of the money, a fair piece. In fact, a very, very fair piece, considering he never had planned to start the company before I spoke with him. And he certainly had absolutely no idea what to do with his life. If you look at what he's doing now, it's just, he's reinventing things that are already out there. YouTube was new. It wasn't a new approach. I don't find zine to be all that new of an approach. It's a little new. But its relevance to things like Pinterest. Pinterest is a big company now. And I don't know. Zine. This is zine. And I have my own zines, so I guess I can read my own magazines, because it will never appear on the page. I wrote some stuff on zine. I have Who Invented YouTube. It was probably CMU alumnus Herbert Elwood Gilliland, and a picture of the building in which I worked for Don Marinelli. And Who Invented YouTube? The Case of Stolen Brands, with Peter Thiel on the cover. Basically content from my blog, but when I pasted it in there, it grabbed all sorts of garbage because their stuff sucks. Anyway, I'm glad I brought this up so I can show you some of the evidence or bits that I've collected. So this appeared in, I believe, Fortune magazine. This is Jawed Karim dressed up as a coke dealing gangster, and here's Chad Hurley. This was his Wikipedia picture for many years on the Wikipedia. I believe it's changed since then, but he's looking great. Big old confused look on his face, and like not even shaven. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. These are links to various things. My attorney said that if you watch Chad Hurley, How We Did It, this is the most telling of all of his talks, because he kind of skips over the beginning and goes right into when we were building it up. This is an article I wrote. Let's see. Let's go back to the other magazine for a second. There's some other pictures in there. Not much to say other than, please read my blog, No Person Committee. Yeah. People who come to my page often don't read all the stuff, don't take the time to really think about how they connect, and perhaps I haven't made it clear enough, I don't know, but it's complicated, and, people come on my page on YouTube, and they're just like, you didn't do it, or I believe you, or even if you did come up with it, you don't deserve anything, or you're fat, or other things that are worse than that. This is the letter that my attorneys wrote in response to a letter from David Kramer. David Kramer writes this letter. Your client's delusional. He never came up with anything. He doesn't know anything about anything. And then these are all private letters. These are not part of the case record, but they're part of the brief, which becomes part of the record only when you win. But regardless of that, Mr. Kramer we responded to him by requesting that Mr. Hurley and Mr. Chen come and have an MRI done with me, or a polygraph, or both, to determine truthfulness. And of course they refused. Or they just never brought it up again, you know. See here, Zine has dragged in Hurley of the of some baseball team. You know, it's not even Chad. You know, so things. You know, the thing is that NASCAR and Chad Hurley were kind of related for a short while. And I actually talked to some of the people in NASCAR and was like, look, this guy, he's just wasting your time. They already didn't like him, so it wasn't hard for them to be like, screw Chad. Basically, Chad was like, oh, well, we'll just have a really nimble team and we'll build a better car. And they were like, you're crazy. You need like 150 people to build a car, which is true. They have like these massive teams. And this guy, Stefan GP, who's so great, he's like, no, you're never going to be a part of this. You're just a dreamer. And it's you know, this is a reprint of the article. And you know, one of the reasons why that happened is because if you type in NASCAR synthetic interview, or I think it's, yeah, synthetic interview, you can see that indeed the synthetic interview, this is at CMU. I don't know if you can, I'll zoom in on this. It says www.etc, which is the department of CMU founded by Don Marinelli, the guy I worked for, and his synthetic interview project with Scott Stevens, both doctors. You know, they, back in, I don't even know when this happened. When did this happen? I'm not sure when this happened. I believe it happened in like 2000. Sunday, February 17th, the 50th Daytona 500. Let's find out. 50th Daytona 500. 2008. Yeah, so the synthetic interview had this, there was a precursor to this. It probably started in 2007. We began building Don and his team, this team, began building, there's Scott right there. Remember him from my last video. They began building this project, which basically involves filming a, you know, celebrity or expert, and then organizing the scripted interview into a database so that you can then type a phrase in, or like Siri, you know, like Siri where you talk and then Siri responds. This is like, instead of Siri, it's like a video of the person speaking. So it feels like you're having a conversation with a celebrity. This very much fits into the panopticon thing. This very much fits into isolationists as capitalists and all that. Anyway, worth looking into. But of course Chad was like, we're gonna do that. You know, whatever, man. And the annotations feature definitely stems from this, and it's just difficult to separate some of these technologies. But you know, I do have, you know, some records of contact with Google that is in my AT&T phone records. You know, I didn't want to, on my blog you can't download my phone records because they have my friends and family's phone numbers in them, but they're, you know, I still have them. They're printed out. They're in a database file. They were examined by many examiners. I use this program called XMDiff and some other ones to kind of go through them. Anyway, so, you know, here's an example. Carnegie Mellon raises Charles Darwin from the dead. Way back in the day, see, it's 10 years old, so this has been around. This was in 2009. It's actually a little older than 10 years, but Oh, that's not there anymore. But there is the synthetic interview. They've done other things like they have a robot on campus that you can talk to. In addition to that, it all started with Einstein. Synthetic interview, old school stuff. Here it is. Well, these news reports are too new, but oh, here we go. 1997. Science blog, 1997. Top Carnegie Mellon scientists will demonstrate new interactive video interview. And it says, the technique called synthetic interviews integrates several important technologies developed at Carnegie Mellon, including the Sphinx speech recognition system, which may or may not have been licensed for certain things like Siri or Google. I think what Google did is that they acquired many of them and then figured out which ones were best at what, and then created an Uber speech recognizer. I know that happened. Anyway, face-to-face Q&A with Albert Einstein in San Jose, California. The goal with Einstein, says Stevens, is to do a historical figure in depth and let the audience have fun. Looks like they were in ACM 97 with this. And it talks about Don Marinelli, co-directors of the newly formed Entertainment Technology Center. And Scott eventually stopped being a co-director, or he may be one of many co-directors, and Randy Pausch got involved. So this was the very early days of Carnegie Mellon's Entertainment Technology Center. You can look at it at www.etc.cmu.edu. They were the first to ever offer a game design degree, I believe, or like one of the first as a graduate degree. It's actually ended up being a graduate in entertainment technology. They work for all the people, you know. There was Randy Pausch. He was the professor who wrote The Last Lecture, which was a New York Times bestseller. And a friend, I wouldn't say a close personal friend, but somebody who knew me. My friends, like, if you go back to 2001, the very first person they graduated is my friend on Facebook. His name is Mauro Fiore. He's also a contact at Zynga now. There's other people that I knew. Here's Ian McCullough, the guy I said I worked with. I'm not really sure where he's working. He's real secretive. Perhaps that's my downfall. Here's Mauro. It's not even a picture of him. I don't know. And Will Paredes, I remember that guy. Jay Woodward, my contact at one of several contacts at Bethesda Softworks, who worked on Fallout. So some of my ideas are in Fallout, vicariously through them. David Hirschfield, I believe he made a big egg that you could sit in and get away from the world. Kind of neat, because the egg shape it protects you from sound, which is why chickens lay eggs shaped like they do in other birds. Let's see. So alumni, and let's look at the next year. Looking for Chris Linder. I knew Russ Schaff. I knew him. Mike Rankin I met a few times. Jason Lentz wrote all of the documentation for Unreal 3. Or Unreal 2, sorry. Unreal 2. It might have been Unreal 3 as well. Kevin O. Young, haven't talked to that guy in a long time. There's also Vincent O. Young, who was another friend of mine. He might have been ETC, I'm not sure. It just didn't seem worth the money. Jared Bishop, I think I knew him briefly. Ray Mazza, I met briefly. Ray Mazza didn't like me for some reason. Other people I knew in this program. I was at CMU for 9.5 years. I worked in a variety of different departments. Let's see. Evan Myers, I remember him briefly. Some of these, see, at this point, I wasn't really hanging out over there. I guess some of my friends didn't actually graduate from this program. They just took the courses. Because they were artists, and artists like trying new things, and this is the new fun thing. I'm looking for Sarah Hatton. Let's see if I can find Sarah Hatton. No, I don't know. She was just an art major. Anyway, you know, these people paid like, you know, $180,000 for this education. I can't afford that. Let's see here. I thought like maybe by getting to know these people in the early days I would get that kind of a help or boost, but it never panned out. Had they listened to me, they would have been millionaires, because I wanted to found a company that ultimately was worth billions of dollars, but they, you know, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know any of these people, so let's move on. So that's synthetic interview, and it's, you know, tangentially related. What else do I have here? Let's look at me. Yeah. Right. PFL link complicated by pituita. Let's see, it's bringing in stuff that has nothing to do with it. Here's one description of what I had something to do with. Other data. So while I was in the case, a lot of people I created a magazine called YouTube's Inventor Invented the YouTube Brand. That's funny. And you've got YouTube backwards, and then me, New Year's Eve 2000, No Person Committee. Please take a look at my Chad Hurley, you know, nervousness study.
How's everybody?
Sure, you'll love the commentary. So I'm gonna keep this one a little shorter and get going, but it's basically what I have to do. Me and my grungy videos from the ghetto, telling you all about the truth, whether you want to hear it or not, whether you believe it or not, whether it matters or not. Oh yeah, I guess it's good to talk about this as kind of a wrap-up. So one of the complications in the case was that AT&T acquired Singular, and during that period of time, AT&T failed to keep accurate records of my cell phone. And so you see these like roaming incoming and other maskings of numbers, making it almost impossible for me to find, in the thousands and thousands of calls that took place, Chad Hurley's phone number or Steve Chen's cell phone number incoming. But even finding these numbers did not prove anything about the content of the stuff. But you know, it was around that time. We just hoped that video depositions would have revealed more information. But as we learned from our Adrianos Fascetti, you know, similar rule, anti-slap, similar to Rule 11. It's like frivolous lawsuit. You can claim this on any lawsuit. And even ones with evidence get thrown out. Again, they didn't use it. They just threatened it. And by stepping out of the case at that moment, at least I didn't have to foot the bill, or my attorneys didn't have to foot the bill. So we gracefully exited, again with the sworn declaration by Chad Hurley of things that aren't true. So, you know, I've revealed that he lies. I revealed that he'll lie to me about me, lie to me about him and to a federal judge. Although it's not proven that he's a liar, a moron would not understand that, you know, if you look at Charlie Rose, and you type in, Chad Hurley. Oh, here's the full interview with Mike Arrington. We'll watch that later.
You just got off stage. Tell us a little bit about some of the new projects you're working on. You talked a little bit on stage, the Formula One, the new fashion stuff.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, I have my hands full with YouTube, obviously.
Yeah.
You found the Formula One thing bumping into me,
Yeah.
to fuse offices.
Yeah.
And then most recently, I just talked about on stage is some fashion stuff that I have going on the side throughout this whole crazy ride of YouTube.
Right.
In 2000.
So, Chad Hurley did found a company. Chad Hurley did found a company. It's called Alaska, and he founded this with his friend, who I guess his friend has become less important, but is still a partner in this organization. And he makes these so-so bags. I mean, they've gotten a little bit better. That's kind of a neat handbag. It's got the side thing. It's just nicer, but the scientist book bag, I don't think I'll ever buy this. A lot of his shirts, boring. A lot of his wallets, boring. I mean, this looks like some cheap shit you'd find in the, bargain basement, table of, or the clearance table of, what is it place? TJ Maxx, it's worthless. And it's incredibly overpriced stuff, like $125 for this piece of crap. I'm sure it's hand-stitched or whatever. Who cares? Like, here's a wallet that I accidentally dropped some acrylic on. It's crap. Oh, here we've put the Big Dipper in there. Who cares? And it's just not worth the money. I mean, who the hell buys this crap except for rich pricks? Here we have a $125 Tesla edition wallet with the Tesla chart on it. I wonder if they did a deal there. It's crap. Let's take a look at what else he has. iPad Book Brown. I mean, I'm bored. None of this is special. It's a fucking pouch. Whoop-de-doo. It's a fucking expensive pouch. Because they can. What else does... Men's bags. For your man purse, contact Chad Hurley. I mean, that's what he was working on. And the name, is like Hawaii and Alaska combined. And we want to create the 51st state. Well, the 51st state is actually like American Samoa. So you're a moron. All right, moving on. Maybe it'll be Puerto Rico. What else? I don't know. That's about it. Sorry for the week ending, but it is the weekend. I'm going to get back to working on my video game, which has been an arduous task for many, many years now. Take care. Godspeed. May the solar winds be kept to your backside or something. Take care.